new text messages that have come out is just disrespectful to types of allegations at issue here. Oh my God. Oh my God. How dare they challenge us because we made an SH claim. So therefore all of this must stop, Judge. We're a victim of SH, so all things must be, oh my God.
What if this film concludes with a twist no one anticipated? New leaks suggest Blake Lively may be steering more than just her on-screen performance. Sources claim she played a decisive role in shaping a crucial sequence involving young Lily, a move that may have shifted the original intent of the book. Even more startling, insiders allege that Lively's sign-off was required for a scene she didn't even appear in. These claims are now sparking questions about creative control and influence behind the camera. Coming up, we break down how these revelations could change public perception of both Blake Lively and the movie at large. Stay with us as we uncover the full story.
It's just the truth, and the reality is that had there been these horrible things, and had there been these horrible text messages, had there been this horrible information.
Why would Justin's team leak this? Also, People magazine's never one of your people that you call out, Blake. Have you noticed that? You never call them out, even though they were the one we all saw say this first. But you don't call them out, do you? Why? I would argue there's enough evidence to prove that maybe you're the one who leaked it to make Justin's team look bad. It goes both ways. You clearly leaked to TMZ my subpoena information. You had it first. You had it before anybody else. How would Justin's team have known that?
Play call. Two simple words buried in a string of text messages, yet they may be the clearest indication of Blake Lively's true power behind the film adaptation of It Ends With Us. The phrase surfaced in leaked messages from Henry Grace, one of the project's key editors, and it's already fueling major industry debate. Not because it suggests collaboration, but because it points to a level of authority rarely granted to actors in Hollywood. In the messages, Grace appears visibly frustrated over what he calls Lively's sway, particularly in scenes involving young Lily, moments Blake Lively isn't even present for. Traditionally, actors limit their input to their own arcs or performance notes. But these exchanges imply Lively's involvement extended far beyond her role, influencing creative decisions and sequences entirely separate from her character. At one point, Grace caps his complaint with SMH, signaling disbelief at how often choices were ultimately written off as a Blake call. According to him, final approvals typically reserved for editors or directors were instead routed through Lively. While executive producers sometimes have broader oversight, what stands out here is the scope of her reported control, especially over emotionally pivotal scenes. The most cited example is the young Lily sequence, a fan-favorite moment from the book known for its raw honesty. Now, insiders suggest it may have been reshaped under Lively's influence, raising doubts about whether the film preserves the original heart of the story. Critics argue that what began as collaboration may have crossed into full-scale authorship. And if true, It Ends With Us may no longer be Colleen Hoover's narrative, but Blake Lively's version of it, but her influence didn't end with creative input. The leaked texts also reference her involvement in DV, believed to be shorthand for decisions surrounding the trailer or promotional materials, indicating that her reach extended well into marketing strategy. This suggests Blake Lively wasn't just starring in or co-producing the film. She was actively shaping how the entire project would be packaged and presented to the world. To some, this level of oversight reflects strategic ambition, the mark of a powerful woman taking full control of her brand. To others, it signals overreach, or even insecurity, hinting at an effort to tightly control how she's perceived both on and off the screen. And that's where the conversation widens. These revelations could impact more than just the film's reception. They could reshape public opinion surrounding her current legal battles, calling into question previous narratives that positioned her as a passive figure. Was she quietly orchestrating far more than anyone realized? Insiders note how visibly unsettled her camp became when these messages surfaced, a reaction that may speak louder than any denial. In that context, play call stops sounding like a casual phrase. It starts looking like the key to understanding Blake Lively's true role, not just in It Ends With Us, but in the careful construction of her image far beyond the screen.
text messages that have come out exposing the control that Blake Lively had on the project. It's interesting. This editor complained with an SMH, shake my head, about Blake Lively's approval rights for a scene. Now, but here's what the problem is. It wasn't one of her scenes. It was a scene involving young Lily. Let's go straight to the text. Here they are as part of an exhibit where personal details such as phone numbers have been removed. But this individual, Henry Grace, is the owner of this chat that seemed to have JB as well. It was an owner as well, along with Rob and Una, who were editors on the project. JB, I can only assume, is Justin Baldoni. But Henry chimes in, done. PG-13, says Una. No adjustments. I guess this is getting the film or the trailer through. Yep, great news. Woo, woohoo, Rob says. Exclamation point, exclamation point. So are we keeping the thrust? I'll drink to that, Rob says. Of course, I plan on drinking anyway. But then Henry chimes in, that's going to end up being a Blake call. Honestly, if you can get her to keep it in and it's in the movie when I get back, it can stay in. She has approval of that scene. Even for young Lily? I was just thinking the same thing. When she claimed she was unsafe, as in Blake feeling unsafe, she redid the writer to get approval of young Lily. So this confirms a lot here. So this does seem to imply, let's be fair, that Blake Lively made a request she was unsafe. Now, this is to Justin's team and Justin's dream team of editors. So unclear if this is something that was officially said to the whole production or that Justin just told the editors and that's how they're calling it this. Unclear based on what this text actually is proving. But it proves that she did readjust things to get more control of the film, including approval of young Lily's.
Why would a legal team submit an entire deposition, especially one that wasn't even finalized? That's the question now circling Blake Lively's ongoing case after her attorneys filed the full, unedited transcript with the court. In standard legal practice, only key excerpts are submitted, carefully chosen to support a specific argument. But Lively's team went all in, handing over every line, every error, every unreviewed statement. And the decision has quickly become one of the most talked about moves in the case. Was it a clever strategic maneuver, or a major miscalculation that fanned the flames of public controversy? Legal analysts largely suspect the latter. One expert pointed out that there was no legal justification for filing the full document, especially when only 2 pages were cited in their argument. In short, the extra material did nothing to strengthen their case in court, but it definitely made headlines. That's why many now believe the filing wasn't about law, it was about optics. Critics argue it functioned less like a legal submission and more like a PR play. And if attention was the goal, it worked. The filing triggered a media frenzy, spreading from legal commentary to full-blown tabloid coverage. Outlets like People and Daily Mail fixated on irrelevant details, including Lively's outfit and a false claim that Justin Baldoni attended in person. Overnight, the focus shifted from testimony to spectacle, which some now suspect was exactly the intent. Could this have been an attempt to shift public attention away from the backlash over the leaked Blake call texts? Lively's legal team says no. They claim they filed the entire transcript to provide context, arguing it was necessary to counter accusations that they were manipulating the narrative or fueling a smear campaign. According to one insider, the goal was to prove transparency. But if transparency was the objective, the execution may have backfired. Rather than calming speculation, the full release invited greater scrutiny. Analysts and observers are now combing through every line of the transcript, searching for hesitation, inconsistencies, or tone shifts that could cast Lively in a negative light. And with new leaks reportedly stemming directly from that very filing, it appears the move may have opened more doors than it closed. So did this bold submission clarify the truth, or simply make everything murkier? At this point, many believe it may do more damage than protection, raising the question, in trying to control the narrative, did Blake Lively's team only deepen the perception of a growing PR crisis?
We continue to read, while I might give them a slight point, one slight point, they're going to lose a ton of points because then they proceed to basically justify a lot of things that have happened in the press and then blame Justin for it all. Which is entirely untrue and deeply harmful. Yeah, you know what was harmful? When you literally tried to say I was a criminal to the judge, which I wasn't. You lie all the time, Manette and People. My God, you guys have lied more than anybody else I've seen. And now you're going, we are the victims here, and we don't lie ever. It's deeply harmful blah, 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 blah. She has a full desire for her testimony to be heard in the legal process, governed by the rules of evidence, which publicly filed this rough transcript in the manner. They had a live transcript. What do you mean the rough transcript? It clearly was done in the moment. Yes, they'll have time to check it, but the odds that this whole transcript is somehow false is laughable to me. Clearly, they're jumping on this opportunity to once again make it like, oh, look, it's a media circus, as you can see here. Even as 2 pages cited, it makes no sense to suggest the facts and Miss Lively's personal knowledge as opposed to the facts developed from the public record. From the investigations or others through discovery would be particularly relevant. Never mind the spot of the nature of Mr. Freeman's conduct and condition. They're just like, no, it's you. You're the problem. No.
Blake Lively has repeatedly positioned herself as the victim of a coordinated smear campaign tied to the ongoing Wayfair lawsuit, but growing scrutiny suggests her claim may not be as ironclad as she presents. According to her legal team, the alleged attacks are retaliation for internal concerns she reportedly raised. Yet, portions of her own deposition appear to undermine that narrative rather than support it. A major point of concern is the heavy redaction of key transcript sections, an unusually aggressive move that immediately raised suspicions among legal observers. If Lively's stance is as strong as she asserts, why conceal so much? Under oath, she acknowledged that the only smear campaign she has direct knowledge of pertains to select elements. The wording is unusually narrow and vague, suggesting her accusations may hinge on limited incidents rather than a full-scale targeted effort. Those redacted portions may contain the specifics, but based on what's visible, the scope of her claims appears significantly limited. The opposing side quickly seized on that ambiguity. Their argument: Lively isn't describing a sustained, organized effort to destroy her reputation. She's reacting to sporadic disputes and heated exchanges that are typical in high-profile litigation. That stance has only gained momentum following public comments from Bryan Freedman, attorney for the Wayfair defendants, who flatly dismissed her claims as baseless and exaggerated. Lively's team insists those remarks are defamatory and part of the broader smear campaign she's referring to. But legal analysts disagree, saying Freedman's comments fall under standard public defense, not a calculated effort to undermine her personally. What further weakens her position is the tone of her own deposition. Reviewers have noted that her answers rely heavily on broad generalizations and imprecise language rather than clear, documented evidence. Critics argue that if a true smear campaign existed, one would expect specific examples, not vague allusions. The extensive redactions have only intensified speculation. While Lively's attorneys claim they were necessary for privacy or relevance, the effect has been the opposite, fueling curiosity about what's being concealed. In trying to control the narrative, she may have inadvertently drawn more attention to its weakest points. The greater danger for Lively is that her portrayal of herself as a victim may collapse under closer inspection. If the smear campaign allegations are perceived as overstated or unsupported, the spotlight could shift back to her own legal tactics, and whether her team's aggressive approach is contributing to, rather than preventing, the controversy. As new information continues to surface, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: Blake Lively's narrative is beginning to show cracks, and no amount of redaction may be enough to hide them.
Uncertified rough draft transcript where it serves no legitimate legitimate purpose. Why don't you let the judge be the deem of that? Is this disrespectful of types of allegations at issue here? Oh my God. Oh my God. How dare they challenge us because we made an SH claim. So therefore all of this must stop, Judge. We're a victim of SH, so all things must be... Oh my God. I can't stand this woman. It harms harassment and retaliation victims. No, it doesn't. No, it's harmed no one. It's redacted. The whole thing was redacted. You didn't have anything. Why? They make everything out of nothing. Every single thing Blake Lively's team does is overdo it, over-exaggerate it, yada, yada, yada. And at the beginning, I gave them one slight point of, did they need to file the whole thing? And legally, they may have had to be fair. And then in which case, I'd dock that point as well. But you then immediately turn this into the same thing you accuse Bryan Freedman of doing, a PR play.
How did the most intimate details of Blake Lively's deposition land in the public domain? That's now the central question in what has become one of the most chaotic chapters of this legal battle. And the answer is far from simple. Major outlets like People and Daily Mail published highly specific descriptions from the closed-door deposition, including reports of Lively's attire, black jeans, a waistcoat, and a pale blue cardigan, as well as the unexpected claim that Justin Baldoni was present during questioning. Yet despite the specificity of these leaks, neither side is admitting responsibility. Instead, both Lively's team and the Wayfair defendants are pointing fingers, each accusing the other of orchestrating the breach. Lively's attorneys were quick to blame the Wayfair camp, calling the leak a deliberate strike at her credibility. But so far, no concrete evidence backs that assertion. Critics argue the rapid accusation may have been a strategic diversion, a way to pull attention away from the damaging Blake Call texts and certain uncomfortable revelations within her sworn testimony. By positioning herself once again as the victim of media sabotage, Lively could sway public perception before anyone digs too deeply into her own statements. But an alternative theory is gaining ground online, that the leak may have originated from within Lively's own circle. The False People report claiming Baldoni attended the deposition has only fueled this suspicion. Observers note that her team never rushed to correct the error. Some believe allowing that narrative to spread could frame Baldoni as confrontational, stirring drama and deflecting from Lively's mounting legal and PR concerns. Adding weight to this theory are reports that Lively's side appeared to know about certain subpoenas before Baldoni's camp did, an unusual advantage that's raising fresh questions about whether her PR efforts and legal maneuvers are more closely linked than anyone realized. Meanwhile, media coverage has only intensified the chaos. Daily Mail mocked Lively's team while amplifying every sensational detail, while People framed the situation as a showdown between two Hollywood players. Both camps are gaining and losing ground depending on which outlet is spinning the story, making the truth harder to parse with each passing headline. What's become clear is this: the leaks resolve nothing. Instead, they've turned an already complicated case into a full-blown public spectacle where perception now rivals fact. If the leaks were meant to bury focus on the deposition's red flags or quiet questions surrounding the Blake Call revelations, the strategy may have backfired. Each new article only fuels more speculation about who's really pulling the strings. Now, Blake Lively faces her toughest challenge yet, reclaiming control of her own narrative. Because as the contradictions multiply and headlines spiral, it's becoming increasingly clear whatever strategy her team had in place is slipping fast.
The team doesn't have anything to not only prove the retaliation campaign, but this ongoing smear campaign that apparently has been happening not only since over the summer, but now throughout 2025, which makes no sense. I want to break down what they have sent to the judge from counsel's Wayfair on this motions to quash the subpoena she served upon the law firm of Freedman. To justify the harassing subpoena, the letter erroneously alleges that Bryan Freedman defamed Lively and that his conduct had amounted to public relations work rather than that of an attorney. It appears that Lively is slowly realizing that there is no retaliatory smear campaign by the Wayfair parties against her. Consequently, Lively is shifting her focus to Liner Freedman in connection with her 14th cause of action, which alleges that certain Wayfair parties, through their attorney Freedman, purportedly defamed her via post-litigation statements to the media. Upon questioning by Freedman at her recent deposition, which it confirms Freedman absolutely deposed Blake Lively.
Blake Lively's expanding control over It Ends With Us is no longer just a behind-the-scenes controversy. It's starting to cast doubt over the film itself. Ever since the Blake Call text surfaced, it's become evident that her influence extended far beyond what's typical for an actor, even one with a producer credit. Reports that her approval was needed for scenes she doesn't even appear in, including the crucial young Lily sequences, have sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Traditionally, actors focus on their performances, leaving editing and narrative structure to directors, writers, and post-production teams. But messages from editor Henry Grace, punctuated with SMH, reveal mounting frustration over Lively's decision-making power, hinting at tension that has now exploded into the public eye. For fans of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, this development is alarming. The emotional core of the book, particularly the childhood scenes that shaped Lily's journey, is sacred to readers. Even minor alterations risk alienating the very audience the film depends on. If those changes were made to align more with Lively's personal vision rather than Hoover's original intent, the adaptation could lose the raw authenticity that made the story resonate in the first place. Already, online conversations are shifting from excitement to skepticism. The question now echoing across fan forums is blunt: is this still It Ends With Us, or has it become Blake Lively's version? Inside Hollywood, reactions are divided. Some insiders applaud her assertiveness, framing it as a female producer rightfully claiming agency in a male-dominated industry. Others see it as a dangerous overreach, one that blurs the boundaries of collaboration. Because if actors start exerting authority over scenes they are not even in, what happens to the roles of directors, editors, and writers? The pressure intensified after Lively's deposition leaks reignited debate about her leadership style. Once viewed as polished and professional, her public image is now taking on far more polarizing descriptors: controlling, calculated, even manipulative. And that irony is hard to ignore. While she frames herself as the target of a smear campaign, growing evidence of her behind-the-scenes dominance is making that claim increasingly difficult to defend. Was her involvement a form of necessary protection, or a slide into micromanagement? And perhaps more importantly, has it damaged the trust of both her peers and her audience? With the film's release approaching, these questions may define not only how It Ends With Us is received, but how Blake Lively herself is perceived. If the film fails to connect with fans who expected emotional fidelity to the book, the blame may not land on the script or direction. It may land squarely on her shoulders. Could this be the turning point where her carefully crafted narrative of victimhood begins to unravel?
Out winning a PR war. Honestly, it's about saving someone's life. I mean, imagine, Harvey, imagine you being accused of something that you just didn't do. You just weren't part of, and you're caught up in this, and you're a real decent human being, and this is a powerful thing that you're going through, and your whole career seems to have been gone and vanished before your very...
Blake Lively's attempt to steer the narrative may have done the opposite, triggering greater scrutiny instead of sympathy. Newly surfaced text messages revealing her reported influence over It Ends With Us scenes, including ones she wasn't even part of, have dramatically shifted public perception. Instead of presenting her as a collaborative force, the messages have fueled accusations of overreach, casting doubt on her professional credibility. Her ongoing claims of being the victim of a coordinated smear campaign are now being viewed by some as a strategic diversion rather than a legitimate defense. Legal experts weighing in suggest that under closer examination, her arguments lack the consistency and evidence required to hold firm. So the question becomes unavoidable: was her intervention behind the scenes a calculated power move that simply spiraled beyond control, or is there a deeper, more deliberate pattern at play?